Today, we are continuing our season review as we talk all things Cole Sillinger. And while we're talking about Columbus-born players, let's talk about Jack Roslovic, who just signed a contract extension today. So we're going to take a look at that and what that means for the future of the player and also the team. That is all coming up today on Locked on Blue Jackets.
Or Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you all of the news, the stories, the trials, the tribulations, the joys, the agonies of your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on YouTube, so you're never going to have to get behind a paywall for a Locked on product, so why don't you start listening now. Well, you're already listening. You're here. But thank you for continuing to listen. Today we're going to be talking about Cole Sillinger, Columbus's favourite son, or one of their favourite sons. And in a little bit, we're also going to talk about Jack Roslovic, who signed a contract extension with the Blue Jackets earlier today. So we're going to take a quick look at that. But first, let's talk Cole Sillinger, who honestly got shafted by the Calder conversation. He's not as flashy as Trevor Zegras. He's a number one defenseman on a team like the Red Wing, world's oldest man, Michael Bunting. But to do what he did, to come into this league as an 18-year-old and prove game after game after game, like, I don't know. I think what Cole Sillinger did this year is super impressive. So I guess let's just start with the bare bones of it. Cole Sillinger, drafted 12th overall in the 2021 draft by the Columbus Blue Jackets, makes the NHL out of training camp, plays his 9 games, and then they're like, hey, we're going to keep you around. He's the only player in the draft to play this season to burn his entry-level contract. He's the only player this draft to start the season and finish the season with the Columbus Blue Jackets. He made the team out of training camp, as did William Eklund in San Jose and Mason McTavish in Anaheim. Both of those guys got sent back to either Sweden or their junior team, depending on who you're talking about. Cole Sillinger didn't do that. Cole Sillinger played the entire season, or near enough. He played 79 games for the Blue Jackets this season, just 3 short of playing the entire season, and he had 31 points. He had 16 goals in his rookie season, which, honestly, that is about 8 more goals than I was expecting. He got a hat trick in the season. I think he's like the 4th youngest player to score a hat trick in the NHL or something. Just a super, super impressive rookie season. Honestly, like I said, maybe not as flashy as, the Trevor Zegrases or the Lucas Raymonds, but he was very quietly very, very impressive. I thought, okay, yeah, he was playing on a pretty bad Columbus team. I don't know that he would have cracked the lineup for the Avalanche, let's say, who just made the final, or the Tampa Bay Lightning. But regardless, for him to come into this league as an 18-year-old and for him to make the team, I think is, like, I keep saying it's super impressive because it is. Like, I don't really have any. I'm running out of synonyms for impressive, frankly. Yeah, I don't really have a bad thing to say about Cole Sillinger. I had Tony Ferrari on the show last week, and I asked him, what grade would you give Cole Sillinger? And he said it's an easy A. He got better every game, and he basically all of the. And I think he phrased it like, of all of the things about Cole Sillinger's game, he was most excited about his offense, his shot. And that was kind of the part that was, the least, quote, impressive season. His two-way game was so good, and it got better every game. His defense was pretty good. His transition had improved, Yeah, okay, 16 goals as an 18-year-old as well continues to be great, awesome. he's nowhere near done. He's going to be even better next season. Like, I don't think we're going to see a sophomore slump from Cole Sillinger. I think he's just going to just keep going up and up and up. I think it's going to help that you play him with, again, I've been banging this drum since I did the Ken Johnson season review episode, since I did the All Hope Yorkshire season review episode. Put those three players on a line and just watch them go. Watch Ken Johnson pass the puck to Cole Sillinger for the next 10, 15 years. That's what I want. I think that's the way that this team is going to find success. I think that Cole Sillinger is a number one center in this league, but I think he can be a very, very good second line guy, honestly. And if that's what he is, if he tops out at a very good second line center, like for a 12th overall pick, I am more than happy with that, honestly. In a minute, we're going to talk a little bit about what I think he needs to do to build on this season. We're going to talk a little bit about his future with the team. But first, I will tell you about Built Bar. I'm so excited about this, and I'm sure you guys are going to be as well. There is a brand new Built Bar flavor, and that flavor is caramel brownie. Don't you love a chewy, chocolatey brownie? Or what about a caramel brownie with caramel swirled on the top? And what if I told you that you can have all of that chewy, chocolatey deliciousness plus 17 grams of protein? Well, you're in luck. Caramel brownie bars are available at built.com right now, but you got to act fast because these are a fan favorite. They are better than dessert. Only 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar. Like I said, 17 grams of protein. I would replace any brownie in the world with a caramel brownie from Built Bar in a heartbeat. Just like all of their bars, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. You don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. You can have both. There are a million reasons that you should try Built Bars, but for now, let's just say that caramel brownie is number one. So, with Built, tasty is the new healthy. Go to built.com to get your box of caramel brownie bars now. And here's the best bit. If you go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, get 15% off your order. Once again, there's promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off on caramel brownie or granola or literally any bar, but you should get caramel brownie at build.com. So, we have an important favor to ask you here at the Locked On Podcast Network. We have put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcasts even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On podcasts. So go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, and everyone that completes a survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. And thanks for helping us out. So let's go back to Cole Sillinger. And I wanted to talk a little bit about. Well, first off, let's talk about grades because Tony Ferrari gave him an A. I'm giving him an A, and the Twitter poll that I did pretty universally gave him an A. I think some people gave him a B, but generally speaking, I think it was like 65% of people gave him an A. So let's pretty safely put Cole Sillinger in the group of players that got an A this season on the Blue Jackets. I'm not going to argue with them. I'm certainly not going to argue with Tony Ferrari, who's very, very smart, much smarter than me, and knows lots about prospect and has been super excited for Cole Sillinger all season. But let's talk a little bit about what he maybe needs to do to build on his success next season, because I think he needs to get back to shooting. He had more goals and assists this season by one, in fairness. He had 16 goals, 15 assists. But I think, if you go back to his draft year at the USHL, Sioux Falls Stampede, he had 24 goals in 31 games, 46 points in those games. Like, he can be a dominant offensive force for this team. And like I say, if you put him with a guy like Ken Johnson, who will just pass the puck all day, like, I want to watch Ken Johnson pass to Cole Sillinger and Cole Sillinger pass the puck into the net 60 times this season. Like, that's maybe unrealistic, but that's what I want. I think that's something that is going to be important. Is he's worked on, and I don't think when I say that he's worked on something this season, I don't mean that he's done working on it. I think his transition game needs improvement. I think his defense needs improvement. I think two-way play in this league is just a constantly evolving skill set. I don't expect him to come out of the gate next season and be Patrice Bergeron, but I think that the building blocks are there. I think he surprised a lot of people this season with how complete a player he is. But I would like to see him get back to scoring goals like nobody's business next season. We know he has a lethal shot, and I don't want that offense to kind of fall by the wayside while he out and becomes this amazing, incredible two-way center. I think we can have both, and I hope that he acknowledges that. I hope the coaching staff acknowledges that, and I'm just really, really excited to watch Cole Sillinger next season. When I did the end of season awards where I talked about, best player, best hair, whatever, I talked about who you're most excited to see in a Blue Jackets jersey next season. And, some people said Ken Johnson, some people said Marchenko. Genuinely think, for me, it might be Cole Sillinger because he's only scratched the surface of what he can do. I think Ken Johnson's going to be a more kind of, it's going back to main characters. I don't know that Cole Sillinger is a main character player, but if you put him with Ken Johnson, I think people are going to watch Ken Johnson play and be like, oh my God, look at this. This is incredible. And then they're going to focus on Cole Sillinger and be like, okay, actually, that was even more impressive. I don't think he's going to be as flashy as Ken Johnson. I do think he's going to be better. And that might be a hot take. Maybe that is a hot take. I don't know. But that's my take. That's my opinion. But I don't necessarily want to pit these two guys against each other and be like, well, Cole Sillinger is better than Ken Johnson because of X, Y, and Z. I think these two players could have a very, very long and successful career playing with each other. You get, I'm not going to compare them to Ovechkin and Backstrom in terms of, their legacy yet, but sometimes you get players like that, You put them together when they're really young and they just play for the next 15 years on the same line. Or, you get two defensemen that just click and they play their entire careers together. I genuinely think that could be Ken Johnson and Cole Sillinger. I think we should look forward to a long time of those guys just ruining other teams' nights. And I'm super excited about that, honestly, and I think you should be as well. So from Cole Sillinger to another son of Columbus, in a minute, we're going to about Jack Roslovic because he just signed a contract extension earlier today. So we'll talk about the contract, we'll talk about what that means for maybe some other RFAs, UFAs that haven't signed yet, and we'll talk a little bit about Jack Roslovic because I love him and I feel like he deserves a little bit of attention. So that's all coming up next on Locked On Blue Jackets. So Jack Roslovic, brand new shiny contract. It was an extension I think a lot of people were hoping for, but I think it's one that is a good sign. 2 years, $8 million, so $4 million AAV. A little steeper than I would have gone, honestly. But again, I think it's sometimes you have to pay a little bit extra for guys like that. And he had a really, really hot end to the season. He finished the season in that number one center spot until Patrik Laine went out with injury. He was playing there, and he just was on fire for the last maybe 10 games of the season, 15 games of the season. I don't think that you should base an entire contract extension on those 2 games, but I still think it's pretty great, pretty impressive. Again, there's that word impressive. I gotta find a thesaurus and pick some different words to use. But I think Jack Roslovic has been rewarded for his strong play this season. He was, I think, an inconsistent player, but not in a bad way. I think he's still very, very young. He's 25, so he's not like a baby, but he's not in his peak yet. I think he's going to keep growing. He's going to keep changing, I guess. And he's going to improve. I think he's going to be better next season than he was this season. He, I think, is a really underrated part of that Laine Dubois trade. I think everyone gets caught up in comparing those two players. I think Roslovic was the best of the three players last season. So the 20 season, I think he was probably the weakest of the three players, but that makes sense. Obviously, Dubois is a monster. Patrik Laine was really, really finding his own. But he had 22 goals, 23 points, 22 goals, 23 assists, 45 points in 81 games. And yeah, like I said, he went on a real hot streak at the end of the season, and I don't know whether that's just because he got a chance to play with guys like Laine and really kind of profit there. He spent a lot of time playing with Gus Nyquist. I think that was a really fun pairing. But I don't know, man. Again, I think like Cole Sillinger, I think we're going to see improvement from Jack Roslovic back to. Sometimes you pay a little bit more than what the player is worth now, so you don't have to pay them more later. The thing I'm not super happy about with this contract is it does walk him right to UFA. So it's for the next 2 years. So he will be a UFA at the end of the 2023-24 season. Maybe he'll extend before that, but he will be a UFA. And this does feel a little bit like not necessarily a show me contract, I don't think, but it very much feels like, hey, let's see what you can do in the next 2 years. And if you grow and if you turn into the player that we think you could, then you're going to enjoy a big pay rise and a long contract. I just wish that we had managed to maybe buy up 1 year of his UFA, or I don't know. Maybe this will all work out in the end. I see a lot of people being like, well, what about Patrik Laine? And like, these things take time. I wouldn't be surprised if Jarmo announces a few more extensions in the next maybe week or so, as he knocks out some of the smaller contracts, and then he has a pretty solid idea of how much money he's working with in terms of Laine. I believe with that 4 million from Roslovic on the books, they are down to 22 million in cap space, which even if you give half of that to Laine, you're still working with 11 million in cap space to re-sign a bunch of guys coming off their entry-level contracts, essentially. And obviously, you have to be careful. You have to space in a couple of years for, Sillinger and Johnson coming off their entry-level contracts, and players like that. But honestly, this is a nice little contract extension. Like I said, I would have been a little bit happier with maybe 3.5. But at the end of the day, it feels insane to be like, it's only $500,000. Because that's clearly a horrifying amount of money. But in the grand scheme of the NHL, it's really not. And so if they were like, yeah, we'll give you an extra 500K to keep you happy, to keep you here, like to avoid arbitration or whatever, like, yeah, fine, Britt. I'm not mad about it. We're going to talk about Jack Roslovic more in a couple of weeks when we do get to his season review. He was 96, so he's a little bit down the line. Talk about him and his season in more detail later on. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the captain. We're going to be talking about Boone Jenner, and I'm super excited. So I'll throw a poll up, get voting on Twitter. LO_Blue Jackets is going to have that Twitter poll where you can vote on what grade you would give El Capitan. Follow me if you would like on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. Don't forget to subscribe over on YouTube. YouTube is we're getting more and more hits on every video, and that's super great. So, if you're not watching on YouTube and you want to see that my hair looks real dumb today, then you should go and hit subscribe over there, watch this episode, or whatever you want, But that's all I've got for you today. Thank you once again for making this your first listen of the day. Lock On Blue Jacket is free and available on all podcast platforms. Still on YouTube, like I just mentioned. Still no paywall. In the time it took me to record this episode, we did not put a paywall behind any of the Locked On products. So get stuck in, enjoy yourself, and until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.